Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your boy, the dope ass dude, and I am so excited to be back with you guys on tonight. Let's just make sure you all can hear me. If you're in the comments, just let me know if you can hear me out there. But hey, I am really excited to be back on with you guys on tonight because we have such an amazing show ready for you guys. And yeah. Hey, Karen, can you hear me out there? Yeah. Okay, cool. She can hear me. Y'all can hear me. You're good. So you guys already know the preliminary things. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you don't mind going ahead subscribing to the YouTube channel, and while you're there, click on notifications so you can be notified each and every time a new podcast is uploaded to the site. And if you're unable to catch the podcast on Mondays, you know you can always catch it on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Again, there's Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And then, you can always watch the podcast live each Monday. You can catch the podcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter or X, and YouTube. Again, that's Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. And if you are not following me on Instagram and TikTok, if you don't mind going ahead following me on both of those platforms, I can be found at the Dope Ass Dude Podcast on both TikTok and Instagram. That's again the Dope Ass Dude Podcast. So I'm really excited about my guest on tonight. She is a phenomenal woman in every aspect of that. She is an author and she's doing some major things to impact the world. And I really like her initiative and her platform because she is giving both men and women tools on how to recover or rebrand or renew, whatever you want to call it, after divorce. And I think that is something that a lot of people are dealing with these days. And I am believing that tonight, after we finish this podcast, you're going to walk away a changed version of yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her on now because I think she can talk a little bit better about herself than me. Tamora, what's going on, my friend?
Hey there. Hey, bro. How are you?
I'm amazing. How are you?
You know I have no complaints. All is well.
All is well. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So I am Tamara Burton. I am sorry, y'all probably heard my dog barking. I'm Tamara Burton. My friends call me Tam. So on the Dope Dude podcast, y'all call me Tam because I am your friend. So I am a divorcee, but one thing that I would love to share with you all is as I am the founder of Life After Divorce, the movement, I am not an advocate for divorce. I advocate for healing after divorce. So I actually started with being coaching couples, married couples, getting them back to the place where how God designed marriage, right? But as I went through my own process and of course ended up in divorce court, I found another lane. God gave me another lane. And so here I am, and of course I'm chopping the story down, but here I am, a divorcee, 7 years. I've been divorced for 7 years. And I motivate, coach, I assist, I speak on different podcasts and motivational speaking. But my goal is to help others understand that there is life after divorce. And I encourage you to live it loud. And so when I say live it loud, I don't mean, how high your voice can get. I know I got a whole lot of oomph when I speak, but I'm very passionate about this thing. But when I say live life loud, I mean unapologetically. Do the things that you were created and called to do. And sometimes as a married woman or a married man, you are who they say you're supposed to be. And so unfortunately, when you become the divorced person, you're trying to figure out who am I? And whether it's a divorce or just a bad breakup, right? Oftentimes we pour ourselves into someone else. We put ourselves on a back burner and then who am I? What do I like? And so as we go forward, I'll share some of the things that I had to really, really look in the mirror at for myself because I didn't know who I was after divorce.
And I'm so glad that you said that you're not an advocate for divorce, because a lot of times people think once someone has gone through a marriage that didn't end in the way they thought it was going to end, that they are against marriage for anyone else. But I love how you said, hey, I'm not here to push divorce. So, like, okay, so you are divorced. So when you first started your journey, like, how did you figure it out that you needed to do some work on you? Because a lot of people would just go and get in another relationship.
Yeah, yeah. So I didn't go and get in a relationship immediately. It was definitely was a process. However, even then, even when I did get in that relationship, the first relationship after marriage, I learned then that you don't know if you're healed or not until you put in position to respond, healed or not. And so while I stepped into that relationship thinking, I got this, I'm good, I know I'm healed, right? I really hadn't put that thing to the test until I got into the relationship. And I realized that, you know what, Tam, there's some more work to do. Yes, you healed as a divorced mother, a divorced woman, and in your mothering and your parenting, right? Because I was doing that every day. So I had to learn how to be a mother to my daughter as a divorced woman. I had to learn not to teach her how to be a divorced woman, but how to be a young lady, right? And oftentimes that's what I was doing. I was teaching her how to be a woman because of my conversation, the things she heard me speaking about, right? And not that I ever spoke badly about her dad in front of her, but my energy, the things that I did, the places that I went, and the conversations that I was having was teaching her more of how to be, how to operate as a divorced woman and not necessarily just a young lady growing and being a good citizen, a child of God, right? And so I had to learn how to, and I don't use the word balance, but I had to learn how to harmonize, how to bring those things into harmony, how to be a divorced woman, yet be an effective mother, how to be a divorced woman, yet be an effective friend or an effective daughter or employee or business owner. Like I had to learn how to mesh all of those things together. And the only way that I was able to learn that was allow God to be my teacher. And that's where it's been since then.
Wow, and I love that. I love how you said that you had to learn different things. And I think a misconception of healing is that people think that once it happens, it's done. And here recently, a friend of mine, we was talking, and I told her a lot of times we are healing in real time because, like you said, you don't know. You when you face something, you think you're over it, and then you face something, and it triggers something
Yeah.
inside of you, and you realize there's still more work for me to do. Did you face a lot of that?
I absolutely did. I did. So I'll share with you with the first guy that I dated after my ex-husband, stepping into that relationship. So I was married for 14 years and I was in that relationship for 20, right? So being in a relationship with one person for all of that time, you lose it, right? So I didn't know how to date. I didn't know what that even looked like in action. I've heard about it, right? But what does that look like in action for a woman who's been with one person for 20 years, right? That is very difficult because I stepped in, and I say this even today. So I will raise my hand and say, I'm still healing, you guys. There's still parts of me that I am still healing, right? And so I stepped in that relationship being a wife. I didn't know how to be a girlfriend. I still don't. I'm still learning. What does that look like? Because I know who God created me to be. But at the same time, not everyone deserves the wife, Tam, right? They deserve the friend, Tam. They deserve to get to know Tam. But now Tam has to look in the mirror and say, why do you keep doing that to yourself? Why do you keep giving a piece of you that does not belong to everybody, right? So in learning how to date again after being married for so long or being in that relationship was definitely challenging. And like I said, I still have my challenges today because I'm quick to say, I'm not a girlfriend, I'm a wife. And so what happens is when you say it, your body follows it, right? The mindset follows it. My heart posture follows it. And so you're getting the essence of a wife. And sometimes it's too much for the wrong person.
Yeah, so we got here. Yolanda said, yes, ma'am. Trying to learn how to date after divorce was a huge challenge. Very different. And I love how you even said that because you have been with that one person for so long, that's all you knew. And that 14 years you were a wife, so you found yourself just being the wife to someone that didn't deserve. So how do one know? How does a man or a woman know when someone doesn't deserve that? Because it becomes second nature. So you think like, oh, I'm just doing what you're supposed to do in a relationship, but you're giving wifey and hubby benefits to someone who's undeserving. So how does somebody know that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I always teach is first thing first, who am I, right? It's important to know who you are, right? Because not who you were, but who you are today. Who are you after divorce? And that takes time. And so who am I comes with what do I like? What do I need? What do I desire? What does God have for me? So as a believer, I can speak from that level because I know the standard that I operate from is not the standard for everyone. So the standard as a believer, someone who believes in Jesus Christ, I know that he is going to show me what is for me, right? I know that in conversation with him. So here's the thing. When you become friends with someone, when you meet someone, right? I give this example often. When I meet someone, they give me, I give them my phone number. They call me. I answer the phone, 2 days later. I don't have their number programmed in my phone. The first question I ask, I'm sorry, who's this? They call me 2 weeks later from a different phone number not programmed in my phone. I don't know your voice. The question again, I'm sorry, who is this? So forth and so on, right? So God told me in my dating, knowing who is for you, who to give, what to give to, right? You got to hear me. And I mean, you got to hear me, right? Not hear me because we have itchy ears and we want to hear the things that make us feel good. And so I had to hear God. I had to know his voice no matter where he called me from, no matter what phone number he called me from. So if he didn't call me from Johnny's phone, or he didn't call me from Tony's phone, or he didn't call me from Gerald's phone, right? I needed to know who was calling me from those different phone numbers. So getting to know who I am first, what it is that God has said I need, what I desire, what I should have, that is when I begin to see these things in these different men that I am dating or I'm getting to know. And so there's times where I'm like, whoo, I did have a list. I ain't even gonna lie. I had a list of things that I needed. No, check, no, right? I did. I started off like that. And I was like, Tam, you are setting yourself up for failure because he'll have 9 of the 10 and then that one, now I'm trying to finagle how we can massage that one because he got all the other 9 qualities, right? Let's just see. So knowing what God said you deserve, knowing who he say you are and not necessarily what you see that you are is going to be imperative in order for you to understand who gets what, right? Everybody gets a natural love, a natural friendship. Everybody gets that. But when I say I'm giving wife, that's a different level. And that comes with you needing to deserve that.
Wow. I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that because I think, and I mean, we hear this a lot when in regards to women. Women are giving guys that would never be their husband all of those wife benefits, the wife benefits, and people always want to calculate that into just sex, but it's more than sex. It's more than sex. They are giving a man that is never going to marry them, that's not good for them. They're giving him all of these wife benefits and he's undeserving of it, and all he's going to do is just damage her a little bit more, and then she'll find herself giving somebody else those same benefits. So I love how you said you had to get to know you. Now, do you think people struggle with that? Like after they come out of a divorce, and especially one where you've been in that relationship and that marriage for a long time, do people struggle with finding their identity, not as wife, not as husband, but John, Tam? Do people find that a struggle?
Yeah, so I can speak for myself personally, but I've also with women and men that I have coached, I've learned that it's across the board, it's a challenge, right? Oftentimes it's because there's an embarrassment that comes with I am a divorcee, right? Who says I do to say, well, not anymore? Nobody. So we learn pieces of how to be a wife or how to be a husband and what to do with that title, but not necessarily, nobody ever talks about, so when you become divorced, when you become a divorcee, these are the things, these are the steps that you're going to take, right? Because the goal is not to divorce. And so becoming, having that title, we must understand that who I am and what I am are two different things. And so until we learn who we are, what I am is going to lead. So this is one way that I put it. You have a chair. The chair that I am sitting on was manufactured for people to sit on, not to jump on, not to, throw, not to play ball, volleyball, or anything like that, but to sit on. And rather 1,000 people sit on this chair or nobody sit on it. That's what it was created for. So we have to think about that for ourselves. God, what you put me here for? What was my main purpose? Because I want to do that. So once I learned purpose, right? No matter what my titles are, because when I was married, I was over a ministry at the church. I worked for the sheriff's department. I had all of these titles. COVID came. Church was closed. So I wasn't doing the ministry title that I had. So we took that away, right? I went through divorce. Okay, that title was taken away, right? What if I retired from the sheriff's department? Okay, now that title is taken away. So who am I left? What am I left with? If we remove all of the titles, and that's what I want us to do as divorcees, men or women who are going through divorce, experiencing divorce, contemplating divorce, remove all of the titles. And then I want you to get to, now what am I left with? And if you cannot define that, call me. Not for real. No, if you cannot define that, honestly, we have a bigger fish to fry, right? Because we're not always going to have these titles, and it is challenging. And it's hard, right, to look in the mirror and say, I'll share with you. When I was filling out an application to something, you know how it says, married, single, divorced. When I had to check mark single, or maybe it said divorce, but I think it was single. When I had to put that check mark on single, it hit me. Like, wow, I'm really nobody's wife other than God, but I'm no tangible man. Like, I'm not going home to cook, to clean, to argue, to disagree, to agree, to have discussions, to tell them how my day went, to make love, to get angry, to fuss. I don't have that anymore. So now what do I do when now my kids are going off to college? Okay, I'm going to the grocery store. What do I like to eat? I normally buy the things for the family. What does Tam like to eat? I left the grocery store one day in tears because I didn't know what to buy. I literally was lost. I was shopping for my ex-husband. I was shopping for my daughters. And when they were all gone, I didn't really know what I enjoyed eating. And so getting to know who you are, when I say it's imperative, removing the titles is imperative.
Wow. Okay. So we got to come in out here. So Miss Tiff said, I've been on the other end of this, dating a man who expects wife benefits after his divorce and not knowing how to date. Wow.
Yeah, that's good, Tiff.
That's really good. You want to say something on that, Tam?
Yeah. But can you blame him? Can you blame him, right? Think about how God created us. We're nurturers. We love, right? Even we're gonna remove the other side that they were like, oh my gosh, she get on my nerve. But just think about the nurturing aspect of it. Just that alone, the nurturing aspect of that, a good man, a bad man, or no man desires that. And so if he had that once, if he's experienced it, so they say you can't miss something that you've never had. I don't agree with that. But I definitely know you can miss something that you have had. And so he was looking for that same thing, just in a different shell, right? And we can't blame him for that. So my question to you is, how did you handle that? What did you say? Did you lead him in a direction of understanding that you can't just get this coming out the back? And when I say get this, I'm not talking sexual, but that too. But I just mean the person that he was accustomed to having, in essence, that is what he's looking for from you. So how did you direct him? Or did you just say, red flag, I'm done, right? Because oftentimes what appears to be a red flag really isn't after conversation. So yes, it appeared red, but it's only red because I know I don't like that. But it can turn yellow and then it can turn green. But that can only happen with effective communication. So I'm curious to know if you just said, nah, buddy, you're not getting that from me, or did you have a discussion with him?
And yeah, put that in the comments, Tiff, how you handled that. But the funny thing with that, Tam, is that a lot of times when we find ourselves in situations like that, we tend to try to step up to the plate to become and measure up to their expectations. And I think that's where a lot of times we're giving hubby and wifey benefits to people who don't deserve it because they expect it and because we want them to approve of us or to love us or to want us. We become who they want us to be. And we're unhappy because we know that we're not getting anything in return or what we want in return. But many times people step up to the challenge and try to become that wife and giving benefits to somebody that don't deserve it.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. Definitely agree. That's where I call it the mirror ministry. That's where the mirror ministry comes in at. Because if you feel like you got to step up to the plate, right? I say grab the mirror and look in it. Because why do you feel like you have to step up to their order or their request? There's nothing wrong with their request, nothing wrong with it, right? But as teachers and students of our own lives, we get to teach people what to expect from us and in a timely standard. Like, so I can give you essence of wife, just who I am, who God created me to be. You're going to get the essence of something that is more than just being someone you're getting to know, right? And so when we learn that it's not a trick, because manipulation is of the devil, manipulation is witchcraft. So I'm not going to say when we learn that trick, but when we learn to be who we are and the essence of who God created us to be as the wife or as the husband, everything else it just falls in line, right? So we don't have to rush into anything because it's the expectation. And I know I can do that and some. But I'm not going to do that just yet. And there's a way of communicating that, right? Before getting there.
Nice. So Tiff did come back and she said there were other issues that come into play. So I moved on. Good for you, Miss Tiff. Good for you.
You should. As you should.
As you should.
I agree.
So Ernest said, before you attach your heart to someone else, make sure you spend time understanding your own. I love that.
That's right, Ernest. That's right.
I love that. Okay. So let's talk about the shame that comes along with divorce. So before you got divorced, because I think sometimes, and I'm glad you brought that out earlier, people are so afraid of the public embarrassment and the shame that comes along and the stigma that comes along with divorce that they stay in relationships far too long. They stay in them longer when they know it's over, trying to figure out, did you find yourself staying there longer than you should, or did you just say, hey, I'm out, deuce?
Well, y'all ready for this tea, now, friend? Listen, so here's the thing, and this is, no shame to churches, right? Because it's just regular human beings in these buildings, right? So I don't want to deter anyone from believing or having a relationship with God. But my situation took place in the church, right? And so there was a big piece of heaviness and embarrassment that came with mine because everyone knew me and everyone knew my ex-husband, right? And knew the young lady that became a part of. And so I wouldn't say I hung in there longer because when it took place, when I learned that he was doing whatever he was doing, I was in a place with God where I really heard him clear, right? And when he gave me permission to step back, I did just that. I was like, okay, I heard him say it very clear. However, I struggled because of how I was raised. So I was raised to believe you work through it. We don't do divorces. You work through it, you talk about it, you pray, you go to counseling, you forgive, and you move on. I do. You said I do, to death do us part, right? So I struggled with what I knew was right and what I learned was right. And so as I went through that, I'll share. I remember sitting in communion, and my pastor said, let the tray pass you if you know that you are going to go, and if you are premeditating a sin, if you know you're about to step out and do something crazy, let the plate pass you. We've all been there before. Let the plate pass you, right? So I'm struggling. I'm like, I'm about to let this plate pass me because I ain't having sex with him no more. I know we still married. So I struggled with him. He's still my husband. Am I supposed to, when he moved out the house, am I supposed to just have sex with him when he come around because he's still technically my husband? I struggle with that, right? And this one day I just said, no more. I let the tray pass me. I did not take communion that day, and I felt horrible because I had been, the seed of, but you're married, had been planted in me for so many years, right? That I didn't know how to differentiate at the time my emotions, what God had told me, and what the people were going to say. So I had to make that hard decision the next time my ex-husband came by the house, came in, tried to do a little ram bam thank you ma'am, and I was like, yeah, no. And he said no, and I said no, and he said okay. He respected it. He said okay. And that was it. And I think it was at that point where I had enough confidence, right, to say this is what it is, and this is how I'll moving forward.
Okay. And I think just in general, the whole upbringing, especially, if you were raised in church your entire life, we've learned that a lot of things that maybe that we were taught when we were younger may not necessarily be truth. That was only other people's fears and disguised as morals and so forth. So I think for a lot of people, they experience exactly what you experienced. You're in church and you do it, and the answer is always pray about it. Pray about it. And you pray and you pray and you pray. And it's like God is answering you, but maybe he's not giving you the answer that you think or church has told you. He don't honor divorce. So you need to stick in there. But yeah, sometimes you got to turn them deuces and get on out of there.
Let me say this. I had to share this in a class one day. I know what the scriptures say about divorce, right? But I also know what the scriptures say about repentance. I know that. So if you ask God to forgive you for doing something, doesn't he forgive you? Right? So if you're the person that feel like God does not honor divorce, but he doesn't honor lying, and he doesn't honor I was going to say homosexuality, but I'm going to say it, homosexuality. He doesn't honor, cheating. He doesn't honor fornication, adultery. But we do it, and then we go and ask for forgiveness, and we may never go back to it, right? And that's it. He's forgiven us. He said he'll throw it into a sea of forgiveness. So if you get divorced and you feel that strongly about him not honoring it, and it is bothering you, ask him for forgiveness. Go to your father and ask him to forgive you and move forward. Because I know folks say, well, once you divorce, you're not supposed to remarry. It's a sin to remarry. And so, again, I come from a place of going to ask for forgiveness.
Yeah, so we got to come in here. It says, because the first thing I was told was God hates divorce. Baby, I prayed while signing my...
Listen, what's her name?
TC.
Listen, honey, yes, I did not at the time because I still was struggling. But baby, once I learned, I said, well, wait a minute. I asked him to forgive me for that. Jesus, forgive me, right? And he will. I'm glad that you shared that. Thank you so much. Yes, because he will forgive us. He will. You have to believe it in your heart. You got to believe, and he will. So thank you. She said, listen, as I was signing my papers, I said, Lord, forgive me. I know this wrong. I know you don't like this. But listen, technically, what is marriage though? Right? So marriage is not going before the people. It's not literally saying I do. That is what man has made. Marriage is, now if you've read anything in the Bible, it says there's a couple of times where it's saying they went into the tent and then they were married. What did they do in the tent? They had sex. So consummation is marriage, right? So you probably have been married already, and then you ask God to forgive you for fornicating. It's so much to that. It's so much to that. It's so much to that.
Okay. So let's talk about that, because I saw in one of your videos you were talking about soul ties. So let's talk a little bit about that. So what are soul ties? Like, because we're talking about fornication or sex, whatever you want to call it. What are soul ties? And how does that apply to divorce as well? Because in your video you talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. So soul ties, connections, deposits, right? We're making deposits. So when you deposit something in someone, or when you deposit something in something, it becomes a part of that. It is no longer what it was initially created as, right? Now there's a mixture, like they say, oil and water, right? So when you put oil in water, it looks different. It does different things, right? So when you have sex with someone, who I am, pieces of me, good things and sometimes bad things, automatically become a part of you. And we'll find ourselves doing that thing. That's just how powerful it is, because it's spiritual. It's a spiritual tie. The soul tie is a spiritual tie. And so that's why it's so important for us to be mindful. First and foremost, if we just want to keep it real, it would be best if we only had one sex partner, one partner. But I know, trust me, I get that part as well. But when you lay with someone, when you consummate, right, we take on spirits, we take on habits, we take on practices, and it may not take place immediately. So think about this. You consummate with someone, you break up, and then you begin to respond a certain way to certain things. You begin to do certain things that, where did this come from? But finding its reference point is possibly the person that you had sex with. And I've experienced it myself, so I'm speaking from experience. I've done it, right? Where it didn't take place immediately. But at some point it did. And I began to figure out this came from him. He would do this. He wouldn't do that. And now I am doing those things. And so breaking those soul ties comes with fasting and praying. There are some things that you cannot rid except through fasting and praying. And so that's one of the things, because it's such an intangible situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So Tam, some of us are walking banks. We got more deposits in us than Wells Fargo.
Some of us are walking ATMs.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we got a lot of deposits. So how much fasting and prayer do we got to do to get rid of all of them deposits?
That's personal. That's a one-on-one thing.
Okay, so let me ask you this here. So can you because in that post that I saw, you were talking about after divorce and still having a soul tie to your ex-spouse. Like, so that was a good thing. I mean, you were married to that person. It's not a bad thing. So that's still something that you have to break. Is that tie with them, or is that,
So as I said earlier, like also everything that's deposited doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, right? Some people you can be with and you change for the good. Like you become more intentional. You know what I'm saying? Like there's things that change for the good. But when you divorce and those soul ties are there, you have to, this is a part of getting to know who you are. Is this me or is this him? Is this us? Right? So removing the things that are not beneficial for you moving forward is going to be necessary. Yes, if you have children with that person, right? So I do have children with my ex-husband. So there, of course, there are going to be some things that we still connect on. He and I are actually really good friends today, right? So we talk, we laugh. There's no bitterness. My kids have never seen us go back and forth after divorce, right? But there were some things that I know that I learned in that marriage that I had to evict. That's the word I'm looking for. There are some things that we have to evict. And so what are you allowing to live within you that you picked up when you were in that relationship or that marriage? What are the things that are beneficial and what are the things that are tearing you down, right? You have to evict those things and become a new individual in that area.
I love that. Evict. Okay, so let's get to it. So life after divorce. So when you're teaching life after divorce, how do you start living after divorce? What's the first thing we need to do?
Grab a mirror. Grab a mirror. I have a workshop that I do, and it's called the Mirror Me, and that's intentional. That's on purpose because oftentimes we're so quick to point the finger. We're so quick to look out the window and say it's because of him that I'm this. It's because of her that I'm that. Right. But when we close the window and look in the mirror, then we begin to see ourselves. Some good, some bad, and some indifferent. We may not like everything that we see, but those things that you do not see, you have to begin to work. You do not like, you have to begin to work on those things, right? And so living life after divorce means I am accepting that I am an individual. I am accepting that I am alone. My bro, David Burris, said something powerful. He said alone is comprised of two words, all one, right? All one. It is just me. I am complete. I am whole. And oftentimes we say he complete me or she completes me or you make me happy. But you have to be that first before you add to your wholeness or your completeness. My goal is to help us to get to a place where we are happy, healthy, healed, and whole. And the only way we can do that is by knowing who we are. And that's baby steps. One day you may feel like, woo, I'm good. I've gotten over that. I've gotten through that. And then the next day it may hit you again and you're like, dang, I worked through that. So it's like the grief process. You're going to go through all of those steps. And sometimes you're going to go through some of the steps more than once. And that's okay. Because starting over doesn't mean that you're starting over. It means I am starting over, but with more information, better educated, right? I'm going to respond differently. I know I responded that way before, but this time I'm going to do it a little different. And it may not work this way either, but I know process of elimination. As I get to know who I am, as I remove layers of bitterness, anger, mad, sad, whatever it is that comes with your divorce, because we're all different, right? I'm here to give you hope. I'm not here to say do it the way Tam did it because it's going to work for you. Because guess what? Tam is still removing layers. Tam is still realizing, woo, girl, you still got work to do in that area. Tam learned, I was 2 years old when I learned that it's because of my being an empath that I've allowed the same type of person in my life and just keep forgiving because, it's okay, right? And it's not until you are able to say, you know what, this is where I'm at. So when you go to a mall or a store that have the locators, right, you're looking for Nordstrom's and you're here in the middle of the mall and you go and you say, okay, where's Nordstrom's at? And you see that little red dot and it says you are here, right? You are here. Nordstrom's is on the other side. You got to walk down this way, go down the escalator, get on the elevator, whatever you have to do. In the process of getting to Nordstrom's, there's other stores that you see. Sometimes we get distracted. We stop and we go in and we shop or we window shop, right? And we should definitely be going directly to Nordstrom. So learning where you're at, accepting where you're at is step one. Step one, this is where I'm at. I'm going through divorce. I'm contemplating divorce. I am divorced. This is where I'm at. Step two, it's like working from the end, coming back to where you're at. Step two is where do I want to be, right? Because we all have a goal. That's easy. It's easy to say, I have this goal, write it up. It looks great on paper. But here's where the work comes at, sisters and brothers. How do I get there? What does that look like in action? What am I going to run into? What are some of the things I'm going to have to remove as I move forward? What am I going to have to put on as I move forward? Who am I going to have to lock arms with? How often am I going to have to look in the mirror at myself? It's so many pieces to getting to end goal, right? And so I want us to understand that we must first start with, this is where I'm at, like acceptance. I'm here. I'm a divorcee. It's okay. That's the title. But who are you? Right? Who are you?
But in those moments, Tam, that's when we ask that question. Like, we look at, and especially when age is a factor in it. So say, for instance, like how you were married, or you was with this person for a total of 20 years. You dated 6 and then you were married for 14. And then, so you had to be in your 30s, probably after that was over with. And then you just look at your life and you're like, what am I supposed to do at 40? I'm just going to say 40. What am I supposed to do at 40? And how in the hell did I get here? And it's like, you don't know how to move at that point. It's like, because you never would have expected your life to be at that place. But I love how you say, accept where you are. Accept where you are. Life didn't turn out how you expected it to be. But how do you get over that disappointment?
Yeah. So it's important that you are mindful of the company that you keep. So Proverbs 11 and 12, it tells us that just like iron sharpens iron, friends sharpen friends. And so who's sharpening your iron, right? Who are you connecting with? What are you listening to? Because that's an iron sharpener as well. What are you reading? Why do we listen to sad songs when we're in these places? Like, we intentionally do that. Why not put on something that is going to uplift us? Why not put on something that is going to encourage us to keep going, to grow, right? And so why not be around people? Because sometimes you can hang around folks that are good in this season of your life. But if you are with folks that are saying, girl, it couldn't be me because, yeah, I would have done this. And you need to remove yourself from that, right? You need to get with someone that is going to say, sis, let me speak to your heart, not your ears. Let me speak to your heart. Let me speak to what I see over you, right? And if we aren't with sisters or brothers or friends, loved ones, listening to podcasts, getting quiet, because sometimes silence is your answer. If we aren't able to just do that, we're going to be stuck at this is where I'm at for a very long time. Or we'll keep coming back to that spot, right? Because as we move forward, we're learning in the forward march. But if we miss a step, we may have to start all over. It's almost like going to high school or going to school in general. You sitting in class and you're getting the lesson, but when it comes time to take that test, you're failing. My question is why? Why are we failing when we've been given the information, right? Or are we amongst teachers that aren't really teaching us? Mm-hmm. I hear things coming out of your mouth, but what are you teaching me, right? So we have to be okay with that, with knowing that sometimes what sharpened my iron before is not sharpening my iron in this season of my life. And that's okay.
And that's okay. And I love how you said, be careful who you see in your ear, because those same friends that's talking about, well, it couldn't be me. No, it couldn't be you because you ain't never been married. You ain't never had a healthy relationship. You ain't had none of this other kind of stuff. So people have, when they're on the outside of a situation, it's always easier for them to give a viewpoint that they don't understand. Love and marriage makes us do things that we never, ever would have imagined doing before. So yeah, be careful who you got in your ear. Okay, so that's really good, Tam. So okay, so then once you accept who you are and you get to that place where you're comfortable with who you are, what's your next step?
Live life loud. Live life loud. Listen.
And Tam, hold that thought real quick. Let me get my glasses because I can't see nothing. Hold on.
Okay. I love it. There you go.
I was like, why can't I read these words? And I looked at myself. I was like, you ain't got your glasses on. That's why. There you go. Okay. Okay, so let's go. Let's go with it.
Yeah, you live life loud, right? After you say, okay, after you have that aha moment, so anytime you take one step, what happens is the level of confidence grows, even if it's just a little bit, right? But when you realize, oh my God, I can do this. I got this, I know I was depending on that before, but when I do it once, I got this. When I purchased my condo, I was like, oh my God, I could do this. It's possible, right? And that's what I want to encourage the people to understand, that just take one step, and you're not in this thing by yourself, right? So once you realize, like, you know what, heck, I accept it. This is what it is. I am a divorcee. Know that you're not in this thing by yourself. There's other people out there that has experienced it or is experiencing what you're experiencing. And so it's okay. I always say that my transparency is someone's road to recovery. So I'm very transparent with my walk. I'll tell you what it is that I went through, who I went through it with, and why we went through it, and all the other things, right? But I'm also mindful of not everyone need the whole story, right? But that's me being in tune with God. That's him saying, no, Tam, don't share that part, because sometimes you can hurt more than you help. Sometimes you can hinder more than you help. But just understanding that it's one step at a time. That is growth. Oftentimes we want to get to the end result immediately. It doesn't work like that. You don't even want it to work like that, because there's so many lessons in the dash. There's so many lessons in the journey. The journey is the meat. The journey is where you begin to create the new version of you, the better version of you. The foundation of who you are, your integrity, your morals, values, standards, all of that, that's foundational, right? And sometimes that needs to be shifted a bit. And if you find that so for yourself, do it. Bro, sis, do it. Go ahead. You've been given the tools. Everything you need is in you or right at your fingertips. I consider this podcast right at your fingertips. So when you leave here, you will have my information to reach out to me. I'm going to be a part of the tools in your box or right at your fingertips. And so is John. He's a part of the tools in your box or right at your fingertips. It's all about the resources. God is our source, but we are the resources. And so if we're not, when your phone die, it needs to be plugged up. It needs to be put into the charger. That is the resource to get it back to 100%. So I don't know who walks around with a cell phone knowing it's about to die and then just allow it to die. Although you have that cord in your hand, you have the resource to charge it, but I'm just not going to do it. Who would do that? The Bible says only a fool looks in the mirror and see himself and turn around and forget what he looks like. Let's not do that. Let's not have what we need and don't change.
Wow. I love that. And I love, the thing with when you get to those places where you have to pivot, those are some of the best places ever, where you can figure out what my next step is going to be, who I'm going to be at this phase of my life. And I think so many times, a lot of us, we miss that. We miss those beautiful moments in our lives because we are so busy focusing on what was opposed to what could be or what is going to be. I love how you said that. Okay, so let me ask you this here. So some of the people, and I mean you're familiar with this because you dealt with this. When you got divorced, you had kids. So divorce doesn't only impact you and your ex-husband, it impacted your children because they're divorcing their ideal of this family unit. How was that with you, and what advice do you give parents that have kids that equally love their parents, but we can't be together no more? What advice do you give them?
Yeah. John, I have to start with this. So I remember being maybe 9, 10 years old, and my mom coming in the bathroom and talking to me and saying, hey, I just, I want to share with you that Dad and we're going to get a divorce. We're breaking up. We're not going to be together anymore. And I cried. I cried so hard. And, she tried to confirm or affirm me and say, it's not your fault, right? But it still took away from me. It still felt bad. And that was it. Never heard anything else about it. They didn't divorce. I don't know what happened, right? So at 9 years old, fast forward to me being 35, 36 years old, they separated. They got a divorce. And I I felt horrible. I didn't feel horrible that they were divorcing. I felt like they only stayed together because of me and that they were not happy all of those years, right? And so I spoke with my pastor and I was beating myself up, and he said, Tam, look at it this way. They cared enough about you that they put their own feelings and emotions. If that was even the case, they may have worked it out and, they just didn't have the discussion with you. They worked it out, and I mean, they got separated and then they got divorced, and I was beating myself up and feeling horrible because I felt like had I not responded the way that I did when I was 9 or 10 years old, they would have gone and lived their lives the way that they needed to live, right? So fast forward into me being divorced, having to have the conversation with my babies. I told their dad, I said, we're going to have a sit-down discussion. So I recommend there being a conversation, right? I don't recommend one day we wake up and mommy and daddy's not going to be together. So we're going to be over here with granny and dad's going to be there and you'll go every other weekend or whatever it is, whatever the agreement is. I don't recommend that. I recommend at their level, right? Because I get it. Sometimes you got 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6 years old. But at their level, there is a way of doing everything. And so that the child is going to be affected regardless. But he or she has a better chance of being affected, but also knowing that mommy and daddy still loves me equally, and I don't have to choose between the two. I don't have to make a choice of who I love most, right? So when mommy and daddy are mature enough to have a conversation with the baby and say, we still love each other, but we're going to separate. We're not going to be in the same home anymore, but we're going to love you still the same. Like having that conversation with the child is so imperative, because even if you think, oh, they're good, they're resilient is what we hear. Children are resilient. They bounce back, and then they bounce back as an adult. Now, as an adult, they begin to show remnants of things that occurred when they were a child, a conversation that was never had between mom, dad, and them about divorce. I'm not saying give them detail, but I'm saying they deserve enough for you to learn how to give it to them at their age, for them to understand that love is not lost. Just how we operate, the relationship is still a relationship. Even with divorce, we still have a relationship. It just shifted a bit, right? And so two mature adults can have that conversation with their child so that they can lessen the blow, because it's a blow regardless.
Nice. So when you had the conversation with your daughter, was that an easy thing for you? And like, was it easier for her? Like, how did she deal with the divorce?
Yeah. So I have 3 daughters. So the baby was home with us, and the 2 older daughters were in college. But when we had the discussion, it was winter break. So one of the oldest daughter was home, and then the baby. So we sat at the table, and my oldest daughter, she moved off of my energy. So when I cried, she cried. The baby was just, like, okay, because it's how we delivered it, right? So we didn't just say, mommy and daddy's not going to be together anymore, and that's it. He said, we love each other. Love is not lost. We still love each other. We love you. He led the conversation, right? And so what I do respect about my ex-husband is that he was man enough to do that. He didn't leave that to me, because oftentimes as mothers, we're left to do things of that nature by ourselves. And so I really didn't have to say much of anything, but just confirm what he was saying was true. And so our daughters really they weren't affected in that way, in a negative. Of course, not having us in the same home and having to split time and all of that. Of course, they were affected by that. But in the conversation, they were actually really good. And it's a blessing. But that's why I can't speak on if you do it from a mature place, if you pray before you have the conversation, because that was my thing. Got to pray. So let's pray and ask God to give us the words. Let's pray and ask God to be in this meeting, right? So we don't see him, but we see him. And so as a believer, I know that anytime you have those tough or difficult discussions, you need to invite the Holy Spirit in as a +1, because there are some things I'm just not going to do to disrespect him. the Holy Spirit because I know he's sitting there, right? That I would if I just went in talking. Now emotions are going and I got an attitude and I'm mad because I feel like you did me wrong and I'm going to respond to some things, you know? So just be mature enough to have that sit down and get some wise counsel. Because if you don't have that other person that's mature enough to do that, have wise counsel, someone that you can go to and say, hey, how do I do this?
I love it. I love it. So I know we're at the end of the hour, but let me ask you this here. How important are boundaries with your ex after divorce? Did you have to set boundaries? Are they important or they just get it? We're not together no more. I'm done with you. You done with me.
Oh no, very important. Very important to set boundaries. Just like Tiff said, right? Stepping out of the marriage. We're not married because something happened. We were upset with each other, and we're no longer married. Okay, but like Tiff said, he stepped in. The guy stepped in expecting a wife, pretty much, right? I had to tell myself. I can only speak for me. I can't speak for my ex-husband, but I had to tell myself, "Damn, you're not his wife anymore. You don't have to look out for him in that area. You don't, so I did have to build boundaries, and especially when I began to date again. So I had to remind myself that it was important for me to make the new person feel important enough that I did not allow my ex-husband to just call whenever he wanted to, pop up if he wanted to. I mean, we have children, of course, but at the same time, when you set boundaries, if there's a new person in your life, right, you don't just get to do the same things that you once did when I was your wife, when you were covering me, when you were protecting me, because the relationship has shifted. So having boundaries is imperative, but you can only require boundaries from someone after requiring boundaries from yourself for yourself.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, Tiffany, before we go, give us a quick recap. What are the top couple of things that we need to do when we are after divorce? What are the top 3 things people need to do?
They need to talk to people that know their name because you just called me Tiffany.
Oh, and I'm speaking about the Tiffany from last week. Tiffany, get out of my head. Okay, yeah.
I know. I'm playing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Know their name. That's the first thing. Know their name. It's not Tiff. It's Tam.
It's Tam. Yeah. So you said 3 things that what, bro?
Top 3 things they need to do when they first come out of the divorce.
Okay. Say yes to yourself, right? And I'll even back up from there. Accept your location. That's number 1. Accept your location, because if you don't accept your location, if you're still assuming or moving, operating in wife or husband mode, then you're going to make some mistakes and decisions that are no longer for you. Right? Number 2, say yes to yourself, right? Before you say yes to anyone else. The boundaries are major right now because we are very vulnerable in that season, in that time. We are open, and depending on what we went through in the divorce, right, we may need to be validated, right? I experienced that a lot. I needed validation after divorce because I needed to know it wasn't my fault, right? I needed to hear people, men in particular, say, he left you? I can't believe it. I needed that, right? So say yes to yourself and not others. And then the last thing, live life loud. Again, live it loud, unapologetically. Yes, I am a divorcee, but that does not define me. I am still who God created me to be. And if you are a person who's not a believer, I am still whatever it is that you would say. I'm still a woman of integrity or a man of integrity. I am still a human being, right? I still enjoy laughter. I still enjoy having fun, right? I still enjoy those things. And so oftentimes we are labeled because we are divorcees. As soon as someone hears that, now you have other women or men that are insecure that don't want you around their spouse. That's a whole different topic right there.
Oh, Lord.
That's a different topic right there. So there's so many things that we have to say okay to after living life after divorce, but I definitely want you to accept your location so that you can move into a space of being happy, healthy, healed, and whole.
I love that. So know your location, say yes to you and not to others, And the third thing, you just said it. See, I'm not divorced. Live out loud, live loud, live life loud.
My
So that's
motto.
yeah, live life loud. So again, that's know your location. Second thing is say yes to you and not to others, and live life loud. I love those three things. So if you are not following Tiffany, I encourage you guys to go out and follow her on Instagram. Tam. Okay, so you about to find out why I keep calling you Tiff. Tiff is on my mind. But so if you're not following Tam, go out. You can follow her on Instagram at _life after divorce _. Again, that's on Instagram _life after divorce _. And then she's on TikTok. Everybody's on TikTok. You can follow her at Make It Rise 2015. Again, that's Make It Rise 2015. And then if you want to get in touch with Tamora Katrice, you can you can email her. You can email her and for a coaching session and so forth at makeitrise2015@gmail.com. So again, you can reach her at makeitrise2015@gmail.com. So you guys, and the reason this is why I keep calling you Tiff. So Tiffany was the guest from last week, right? Okay. So this is season 10. I'll be ending this year on this podcast, this season on year 3 of the podcast. So each podcast, so 3 years, 10 episodes, I'm giving like $30 cash out every week. So if you don't, last week, nobody got the answer. Nobody got the answer. So that money is going to be added to this money this week. So we're giving $60 away. If you don't get it by the end, it'll be $300. But tonight it's going to be $60. And so last week, Tiffany was on the podcast. And Tiffany, I know you're out there watching it. So if I see your name in here, I'm not even going to give it to you. What was Tiffany's address? I mean, her web address. And I'm going to give you guys a couple of seconds. Hey, Siri, set a 30-second timer. Let's see if Siri follows through. So we're going to set a timer, and you guys, what we're going to do is you tell me what was Tiffany's website from last week. And I'm starting the timer now. So we're going to give y'all 30 seconds. Let me go to the chat, see what we got in here. Okay, Pat was helping me out. Say yes to yourself, and know your location and live life loud. Thank you, Pat. You always looking out for me. Tyson had said earlier, let's go back through these comments while they go. I'm giving y'all a little bit of extra time. Tyson, I saw he said earlier 40 is young. Okay, he must be 40 and kind of insecure about his age. So there go to 30 seconds. And so okay, so let's see what we got here. One of the best things I did was working on me before I got married. She is speaking the truth. My husband doesn't complete me or any of the cute sayings society likes to tell us. I love that. And then somebody said JP needs to write an encouraging love song. That's Tony. He's crazy. So yeah, Tony, we're not listening to you. We're not listening to you. Okay, so nobody got that answer. So let me show you guys what the answer was to that. Tiffany's website was moretowellness.com. And last week, the answer to the question was Trust the Process, LLC. That was MacArthur's ministry organization name. So you guys tune in next week. I would encourage you to watch this video. This podcast is going to be something about that next week. Oh, Tiffany, Tiffany, get out of my head. Tam, so tell us about your books.
Oh, yeah. So the first book is Marriage Policies and Procedures that can be found. They all can be found on Amazon. But the Marriage Policies and Procedures is for anyone that is single, anyone that is dating, anyone that is married. I have a couple that read it that's been married 25 years, and they were like, oh, my God, right? So it's can serve as just tools to keep the fire going. And then for those that are single, it'll help you just create and build who you should be, who you need to be for the person that you'll be with in the long run. And then the other books are related to divorce. So just encouraging. I have a men's book. It's called Men Tool Notes And that's the Life After Divorce for the men. And then we have a journal for the women and a couple of other books that are Life After Divorce and Life After the D. All very encouraging and assisting you with your growing and your journey of healing after divorce.
So how did that titles help that book sell, Life After the D?
I already knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. Baby, listen, play on words and get you every single time, right? So what happens is it's always a question which helps me to go into my spiel, right? And that's pretty much what it was. But yes, I got a few of these from the church folks. Listen, come on, we can't be so heavenly bound that we know earthly good.
You're right. And the D did lead with the divorce. So hey, there you go. The D did lead with the divorce.
Life after deliverance. Life after deliverance. Jesus.
Tamora, thank you so much for coming on here. And you already know, like, oh, wait, one other thing. You're having a conference later this year. Talk about that. Yeah, talk about that.
Yes, my Life After Divorce. We have a meet and greet, so people will get a chance to meet all of the authors and co-authors and each other. I consider all of my experiences or events, I consider them all to be networking. So the meet and greet is Friday. Saturday morning, we will have the conference. We're going to have a mock date. I don't know if you've ever been to a conference where there's a mock date, but my bro, David Burris, he is going to be the keynote speaker and also moderating this date, like with the live audience. And oh my God, it's going to be amazing. And then that evening is the gala where it's a celebratory thing. We have live music. We have a comedian as our MC. It's just going to be a lot of fun. And for those who are sponsors, you can be a sponsor. You don't even have to be here, but in California, but you can be a sponsor. But if you are a sponsor, you are now VIP. So the VIP experience is that Sunday where I am going to be serving the people.
Nice. Now, will Sunday be virtual?
Sunday is not virtual. It's in person.
Oh, okay.
Come on out here. Listen. Come on to Cali. I'm
probably gonna be there next month while you play it. I may be there next month, so we'll see what's going on with that. Yeah, we'll see. But Tamora, thank you so much for being here. And guys, if you make sure you tune in next Monday, 7 p.m. Got another amazing guest, and the pod is up to $90 next week. So make sure you tune in. Like it'll be about something tonight. Tamora says so much stuff. I mean, you gave me a lot. It's gonna be kind of hard for them to remember all of these tips. I'm gonna make y'all work for that $90 next week. Yeah.
Well, the pot is thick, so you got to lay it on them thick. So thank y'all for tuning in tonight. And Tamora, thank you so much for being here. And guys, we will see you all next week. Peace. If I can get out of here.